Right, this year's GAA All-Ireland Championship semi-finals and finals are going to be live on Sky Sports Mix. Sky Sports Mix is available in approximately 900,000 homes in Ireland on Sky Channel 416 and Virgin Channel 409. Jim McGuinness and Kieran Donaghy will be on analysis all across the weekend for Sky. And last night, Kieran caught up with Jim to look ahead to the semi-finals and break down McGuinness's vision for the future of the All-Ireland Championships.
Welcome to OTB AM. Kieran Donaghy here, delighted to be joined by my Sky Sports colleague and Donegal all-round legend, Jim McGuinness. Jim, how's the farm? How are you keeping?
Kieran, good. Good to be with you.
Looking forward to the weekend?
Yes, I think it has the makings of a very exciting weekend. To think that you have a Division 3 team that finished 5th in Division 3, 70 minutes away from an All-Ireland final, and, you know, looking at them, the way they played the last day and their approach to the game and the way the manager's speaking, there's a real belief in there that they can do it as well. So looking forward to that one. Cavan have done amazingly well up to this point, and the grit and determination and focus that they've brought, complete underdogs in every single game, written off, you know, beyond belief. And yet, no, there was something within that group as well. So that's been really refreshing to see that. They have a huge challenge against the Dubs. Obviously, you know, we're all very much aware of that. What I like about it, Kieran, is I like the fact that you have a situation with Mickey Graham where he seems to have taken all the pressure out of the event for them. I was very taken by the fact that even in the Ulster final, whenever those water breaks and stuff, you could see him in amongst the players, you know, having a joke, putting his arm around them, taking the sting out of the occasion for them, and just basically saying, you know, this is bonus territory. He mentioned that before the Ulster final, and just go out and play and enjoy it and see it through and stuff. So I would expect them to bring a similar approach on Saturday evening.
Yeah, he's done remarkably well, and you know, he did that with Mullinyacht too when they beat Kilmacud Crokes that time, because that was a David and Gillette. So, you know, he's got a bit of form in this, so yeah, it'll be exciting to see what they bring is what I'm really looking forward to. I suppose, yeah. Jim, just to get you on, and thanks for coming on with me. I want to get stuck into this, your article in the Irish Times, which was excellent last week, and your piece with Inside the Game on Sky Sports last Wednesday night, just on the reform of the championship. And I think when most people talk about these tiered championships, and a lot of focus is on the top tier and how do we get more games between the top players. I think that's what the Super 8s was brought in for. Reading your piece, I think it's really dialed in, and you focused really much more on the Tailteann Cup side of things, and how do we really bring on all the counties, even counties that would be possibly hurling predominant counties, and how do we give them their day in the sun? And we see it working with the club structure, and you see the intermediate finals and junior finals in Croke Park, and the joyous scenes between fans and players when they win those competitions. And there's a part of this, what I really got from reading it is kind of, I had a vision of seeing this Tailteann Cup winner, crowds running on, or players running around the pitch, climbing the Hogan stand, views of Sam Maguire next year. I suppose we'll take people through it, starting from the very top. There's 2 tiers, obviously, or brackets, I think, as you like to call them.
Yeah, I think one of the big things, Kieran, here is that everybody's part of the conversation. That was a lot of where my thinking was come from, and I think that there is an us and a them within the GAA. You know, there's the top teams and there's the other teams, and so where my thought processes took me was sort of, was there a structure out there potentially that could link the National League with the provincial championships? The provincial championships have been under a lot of pressure for a long time, and people calling for them to be axed and stuff. I was never part of that group. But I think this year has totally bucked the trend in that regard, and I think the provincial championships will be safe again now moving forward based on what has gone on in this championship. So my thinking was, can we create a structure, a format for championship where all the competitions are meaningful and all the competitions are linked together. And so the National League would have a significance, the provincial championship would have a significance, and then the championship itself. And so it would end up in 2 structures. But the beginning of the year, obviously, every year, you know, people soldier away in the National League. Some people like yourself maybe don't like playing all the games and do a wee bit of rest.
I was getting old, Jim. I wanted to play in all the games when I was a young fella. Don't worry about it.
But No, but my thought process were, can we make that competition something truly competitive from the very first going off, and can we connect that with the championship? And that's where the thinking came, and so it was that thought process that led me to the structure that we're going to talk about.
It puts real focus on every game in the league, whether it's your first day out or your last day out. It puts real focus on every division throughout every game in the league. I think that's a real big thing. There's no kind of games off. There's no hour mid-table. It doesn't really matter. It really focuses you in that every win and every move you climb the ladder on every league table is your better position when it comes to whatever championship you're in. And we see it in March Madness in college basketball. You've got your brackets 1 to 64. You've got your 4 different brackets, and it gets broken down where you've 1 versus 16 tier teams. And there's shocks. You know, the 16 tier teams come along and catch a division or a tier 1 team out of nowhere. So I like the way you've linked all the divisional, all the leagues in league football, and that everybody is getting ready for that provincial championship, but they know whether it's Tailteann Cup or Sam Maguire they're in, that them league games. So it does kind of marry everything in together.
Yeah, so just to be clear, the thinking was that it would be based on rankings, and the first 16 teams would play each other, you know, at the end of all the rankings, with the first team playing the 16th, the second, the 15th, and so on and so forth. And so you have this situation, for example, you know, we can go through this year. I have it done out in front of me here. You had Kerry, Dublin, Galway, Tyrone, Donegal, and Monaghan. They would have finished 1st to 6th in the league. And then you had Monaghan, and then you had Roscommon and Armagh who were promoted. So they would take the next 2 rankings. So the teams that finished 1st down to 6th would be the first 6 rankings. Then Roscommon and
7 and 8
that were promoted. Mayo and Meath were relegated, so they would take up the next 2 rankings, 9 and 10. And then Kildare were the team that finished 3rd in Division 2, and they would take up the 11th ranking. So that would be the ones that will be secure, if you like.
Okay.
And then the 12th ranking, that will be set aside for this Tier 2 competition, and the winner of that then would automatically qualify for the playoffs, which is the last 16 at Tier 1 or Tier 2 every single year. And so that, first of all, gives you an opportunity to put your best foot forward and to try and win that championship outright. And that we'll talk about sort of the dynamics around that in a wee while.
Yes.
And then the last 4 places in the rankings are for the 4 provincial winners, Ulster, Munster, Leinster and Connacht. So that will make up the 16. Now, what's going to happen, Kieran, in a lot of situation here is the teams that finished 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th in the league will also probably be provincial winners. And if that is the case, then the other teams outside the Kildare and on down into the 2nd division would take those spots,
the free spots. So if your favourites or your Division 1 teams end up winning a provincial championship, your teams that are fighting for that higher place in Division 2,
yes,
how hard they fight and how hard they go actually determines whether they can be in that Sam Maguire.
The 5th team, the 6th team, the 7th team. So the National League becomes very, very important. It doesn't matter what division you're in, because if you're in Division 4, you're kind of trying to get to Division 3. If you're Division 3, you're trying to get to Division 2, and you're trying to get into those rankings position. But then you've got the provincial championships, and the provincial championships then come after the National League. So if you are like Tipperary, for example, this year, and you finished in Division 3, and they finished 5th in Division 3, they wouldn't be inside the rankings, so they wouldn't be qualifying for the A-tier competition.
Sam Maguire, we can call it,
because they won their province, they take one of those positions. So they push one of the teams that finished higher in Division 2 out of the equation.
Out of it.
Because they bucked the trend. And they came in and they won the provincial title from that position. Cavan were relegated to Division 3, and they did that as well. So here you have a situation where the thing is actually working in motion here now. You have the 1st division teams, you've got the big teams, and then you've got the teams that don't make that bracket, that have another chance to make that bracket. In a normal circumstance, Kieran, teams in Division 3, Division 4, they'll play in the league. They'll play in the championship, maybe against a big team. They'll get knocked out. They'll have one game in the qualifier, and the game and the season is over. So in this situation, they would still get to play in the league. They would still fight to get up as high as possible as they could in the league. Yes. And they still get the big, the Waterfords, the Clares, the Tipperaries. They still get the crack at Kerry and Cork in the provincial championship. If they go and win it, they end up in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And if they don't, then they play in the last 16 of their own section. And the focus then becomes winning that. And that then brings them back into the...
And their league rankings in Division 3 and Division 4, if them teams are in it, that determines a better chance that they have of winning it. If they declare the higher they are, so your top team in Division 3 will end up playing your bottom team in Division 4 if that's the way it works out.
Correct.
Okay. So everybody's getting another game as well.
Yes, and everybody's striving for something.
Yeah.
And everybody's striving for something. And then crucially for me, the most important thing is this, that there's no us and them. That this thing is connected, that when the playoffs, I'm going to call them the playoffs, when the playoffs start to take place, you've got Dublin and Donegal, let's say it's in Cavan. Well, then there's a Tier 2 game going to happen as well, and that game is played before the Tier 1 game. So all the Tier 2 games are connected with the Tier 1 game every single weekend. So you'd
have 30 or 40,000, you'd have 30, 20,000, 25,000 in Breffni Park. Of fans around the bowl ready to see these two games and both competitive games because they're realistically teams that are well pitted against each other.
Yeah, and listen, Kieran, we all grew up with the one thing in the back of our mind, and that was trying to emulate county players and trying to become a county player and trying to win things with our county. We've all done that. And so if I'm in Clare or Waterford or Leitrim or somewhere like that there, and this structure allows me to go and play championship football in front of 40,000 people or 50, and this structure would take place before the Tier 1 games, the whole way through to the All-Ireland final. Both All-Ireland finals would be on the same day, the semi-finals, the quarter-finals, they would all be on the same day. They would that precedent would be set the whole way through the championship. So you're 19 years of age, you're 20 years of age, you're from one of those counties, you're going down to Croke Park, it's a packed house, there's 4 counties fighting for tickets. I think revenue will be up in the National League. I think there'll be a massive interest in the provincial championships. I think the provincial championships will be rescued in terms of, the significance of them, giving people that second bite at the cherry. And then you have this other competition underpinned by the Tier 2 competition that means you're going to have packed houses. And it doesn't matter if you're in the Tier 2 game or the Tier 1 game, that's going to be very, very competitive football because the prizes are big. Think about that versus a qualifier game that there's no comparison.
There's no comparison because that you often hear when the Tier 2 talk starts that a lot of the Tier 2 teams don't want to know about it. I think they're scarred by the Tommy Murphy Cup. And I had Declan Brown on a road show last night, and I was talking to him. He was the captain of Tipperary, and he said, we didn't think too much about it the year before, but I climbed the steps of the Hogan stand. I lifted a cup over my head for Tipperary. We got a holiday to New York with the group out of it. There was a huge buzz in the team going into the following season. And I think that's what we want to try and encourage, that these teams, that there's more motivation to come back even bigger and stronger next year. Because a part of your article is you maintain that some of these county boards and teams that don't see themselves as having a chance of winning the Sam Maguire, are nearly thrown in the towel before the season starts and not giving the team the support structures it possibly needs.
Yeah, I think the big thing is the why. Why are we here? We're here to train hard to be the best that we can be in the league. We're trying to get the best ranking that we can in the league, and we're also going to use that for preparation for the championship. We're going to go out into championship football and we're going to deliver our best performances, and if we won our province, that's amazing. If we fall short in that regard, we go into the other competition and we go after that with every single thing we've got. So from the very first day of the year, there's hope. And I think the biggest problem, one of the biggest problems facing a lot of these counties at the moment is they don't have that sense of hope and they don't feel part of the conversation. And so we have to find a way where people that are in these counties are continuing to aspire to be that guy, to look at their captain, as you said earlier, climbing the steps of Croke Park and lifting that championship in front of 84,000. I mean, that is a special moment. Like, it doesn't matter. That is a special moment for any player, And so it's going to be All-Ireland final day, and the vibe is going to be there, the feeling's going to be there, the crowd's going to be there, it's going to be championship football, and I can't see how that dynamic could fail, Kieran.
Yeah, no, I think we've nailed a few things, Jim. I think the double header and guaranteeing the Tailteann Cup and Sam Maguire games will always happen on the same day, that there's one of each, is huge. Because as you rightly say, if I'm a youngster from a struggling county or a county that hasn't been at the top table, and I'm going up to play in front of this big crowd in Croke Park, and not even Croke Park, maybe we bring a lot of these early games to provincial venues where, you know, like that famous atmosphere in 2014, the Gaelic grounds between Kerry and Mayo. There's obviously provincial finals a number of years ago. There used to be great atmospheres at them, packed houses, and you'd have more of that. So we've nailed that. If we can guarantee the Tailteann Cup games are linked in with the Sam Maguire games, and I know you call them brackets. I'm just trying to put it into the terms that we're talking about for next season, possibly. If we can have them games guaranteed to be on TV, that the double header that Sky Sports have is the Tailteann Cup game followed by the Sam Maguire game. Likewise, with other broadcasters the following day, they would have similar. So you're guaranteed profile, you're guaranteed a crowd, you're guaranteed a chance to go on. There's a lot of guarantees there. I think the one missing piece and another piece that you talked about.
Just one thing.
Yes.
Just one thing I was going to say, Kieran, was also from the very first day of the season, everything is funneling towards the playoffs.
Yes.
It was the best 16 teams, and they're there in merit. Look at Galway this year. Look at the great work that Galway did at the beginning of the league, and they ended up finishing third in the league. So that good work would be rewarded. Like, the season's not lost. You know the point that I'm making there? Kerry, the same thing. They won the league, and all of a sudden, you know, they'd be ranked number one because of that in the playoffs. And so there's another thing in play here as well, where everything moves towards playoffs, and playoffs is the last 16, and then you've got the 8, and then you've got the 4, and I think that in itself, you know, would create a phenomenal cutting edge, because people are talking about, you know, scrap the provincial championships and let's have an open draw, and there's a bit of merit in that, and then there's merit in keeping the provincial championship because of last year, but we can have the whole thing and connected, and everything worthwhile for everybody at every level, including the county boards, including the sponsors, and including the players. And so for me, these are all the sort of the variables, the stakeholders that are going to make this thing happen. But there's a win-win situation for all those people, which makes it, I think, an interesting proposal. You know?
Yeah, and I think for the kids, Jim, and the youngsters from these counties, and let's go, Dad, let's put the flask, the sandwiches. We're heading to Limerick for the double header. Kerry and Galway are on first, and we're playing Leitrim above, and it'll be big now if we can win. We've got this crowd in the quarterfinal. I think a big thing that people have spoke about this year, Jim, this real knockout football has brought a bit of an edge back to it. So in the instance that you're talking about in this format, we're getting knockout football in the provincial championships, and you're getting knockout football in the playoffs. And
exactly.
I think the time you spent in Charlotte, I'm delighted with you calling them playoffs. That brings me back to the basketball and the season defining always down to playoffs and knockout, whether it be the Super Bowl, it's your ranking. Every game matters because of you're going to have an easier game. You're going to have a tougher route to the final. Teams win it going the tougher route. Teams win it being the top seed, but it doesn't guarantee everything because there's always that fear of the knockout element. I think you're getting that with this marketing, Jim. Let's dice into marketing a small, but then you look at the job we'll say AIB have done with the club championship and the toughest. Like you see what Lidl have done with the ladies championships. Unbelievable marketing efforts that have put all these competitions to the forefront of our minds, that we see it on TV during the winter, the club, and we see all the ladies games on now. We see the commercials on television. Who's to say that someone wouldn't come in and try and take this Tailteann Cup to the next level, use the stars of these teams, because there is plenty of stars in these teams to use it in promotion, and their profile rising again out of it and adding a bit more spice to it. It is an important factor. That's another thing that I think the players in these teams are slightly fearful for. Will we be forgotten about when it comes to the marketing side of things?
Yeah, 100%. But one point they made there that I think is crucial. There's a lot of brilliant players in this country that are never exposed.
Yes.
We never see them. We don't see them enough. And I think that's very, very unfair. And so that's one point I'd like to make. And then the other point is...
And I'll come back at you and hold it in your head. I always saw myself that I would have been a very average footballer, I think, sometimes on a weaker team, because my skill set on the good team, we'll say, was to get the ball and bring the really good footballers that I had around me. But I'd often look at these teams and go, geez, if you could transport an Emlyn Mulligan into a team here, you know, or if you could pick Brendan Murphy from Carlow, he'd start in the middle of the field for Kerry possibly. And, you know, you're right. You would give these fellas a bigger platform, which is important for them as well.
And I think it's going to raise standards. Because there's none of this. There's none of this. We're going to take it easy during the National League. There's none of this saving yourself from the get-go. You've got to be on it, and even you're in Division 4. You know, you must be trying to strive for 3. And if you get to 3 and you can get a good run and you can get promoted, you're back in the big time. You don't even have to win the second-tier competition. So everybody's fighting for something on day one. And if all that sort of unravels on you and it doesn't go the way that you're hoping it's going to go, there's a second chance, and the second chance is the provincial championship. And if that doesn't go your way, then at your own level, then there's another chance to make that happen. And so for the whole season, people are engaged. And for me, crucially, there's hope. There's hope for everybody within the organisation. Everybody within the organisation feels part of the conversation, and feel that what they're bringing can be at the same level as what other teams bring. And I think that won't be lost on the powers that be in terms of the funding and the commercialisation around this. Because, you know, if you get those teams and the standards raising and the cutting edge of playoffs football in the championship, in big stadiums, packed stadiums, and Tier 2, and these end up being brilliant games, would it not be an amazingly enjoyable day out for everybody going to see those 2 games? You know, the teams that are waiting for their own team to come on afterwards, and the teams that have the supporters of the teams that have just played, to be able to go then and see the best in the country, and the other players to be in the stadium and to be part of that day. And what do they do? How do they do it? The Division 1 teams, how do they warm up? How are they keeping the ball? How are they playing the ball inside? All of that is so important, to be close to that action, to be able to, you know it yourself, you know, from managing Donegal, you know, everything that you're doing at county level, you see it in the clubs in the next couple of weeks, because the boys bring it back to their clubs, and what you're doing at county, and that's the way it works, and that will be the same at county level and that structure as well, I believe.
You're bringing it on. You're right. You're All Ireland final day. You put your minor game on at 12 o'clock. They're 17-year-olds. They're getting out in Crow Park, but you've got your winner of your Talton Cup climbing the steps. There's momentum to carry into next year. We're going on a holiday. There's a massive buzz. You're lifting that trophy in front of 70 or 80,000 people at that stage, coming in to get while you're waiting for the other teams to come on and start their warm up a half an hour before the game. So that buzz and that lift for a player, and the chance of that every year, I think would really focus the teams. And as you say, if they don't make it where they finish in Division 1 or Division 2, if they don't make it to the Sam Maguire race by not winning their provincial championship, it gives the teams real focus, and you get to build momentum. I think we see constantly Division 3 and Division 4 teams get dumped out in a damp squib of a qualifier, and they creep away off, and there's nothing really to go on, because they meet a powerhouse from Cork gets knocked out of Munster, or Kerry gets knocked out of Munster, and it's a bit of an open draw, and you have these anomalies of these teams coming through. But I think that is momentum for teams, momentum for players to keep them coming back next year, because I think there's an awful lot of that now. Will I play next year? Will I do it all again for that type of a finish? But if there's the hope there of, yes, we're building something, yes, we're getting better, and no matter what happens in Division 3 or Division 4, or no matter what happens in our provincial championships, I think we can make a good run at this Talton Cup. Now that rejuvenates you for that year, it puts you back in the gym earlier, and as you say now, all the standards are being raised. So I think it's something that is exciting. I think it's something that we have to look at pushing through, Jim. I know Congress dilly and dallies over a lot of these things for a long time, and it has to get a certain vote. I think it was refreshing this year for the GA to realise we've got to go knockout football. We've got to put it on this time of year. And there was no problem. There was no Congress. So I think really pushing something through like this, getting it pushed through quickly, would be really exciting momentum to move on to these, hopefully the start of these leagues in February. And as you rightly say, there's fireworks on day one in every league division next year, because they know the following year is going to have a massive bearing on what they're about. Yeah,
you're always trying to look at it from every angle, Kieran, and one of the big ones for me is, where could it fall down, you know? And I really believe in the structure, I really believe in the structure, but it could fall down. And for me, where it could fall down is that it isn't backed, that it isn't supported, that it isn't advertised, that the money isn't put in to support the teams that are in that from an advertisement point of view, from a training point of view, from the best hotels, the best travel, you know, the best kit. All of that needs to be in place for all these teams, or it will not work. It will just simply end up being an us competition and a them competition. And to be brutally honest with you, I think, you know, the lesser teams, in inverted commas, are sick of that. They're sick of that. They're sick of being over there and not having this hope and not having these sort of aspirations, sort of being in touch and distance and being in reality. And I know we have had an amazing year this year with 2 teams from Division 3 bucking the trend. But in this situation, that could be much more common because everybody will not be happy with where they're at. You must get up one level from next year and another one and another one. And it'll take time for the whole thing to develop and grow. But over a period of time, I believe all the teams will get stronger because you'll be looking at your neighbour and you'll be thinking, you know, regardless, we're all in Division 4 here, but we all want the same thing here. And that's going to have big implications for us moving down the track. And so that rising tide, I believe, will be there. On the other side of it, you know, the first tier situation, the best 16 teams in the country, you know, in knockout football, you know, you don't have to say any more than that. That's championship football at its very, very best. You know, no round robin, no Super 8s, no, that's knockout
no dead
football.
Games, no dead games.
That's proper championship football where anything can happen, to my mind. And most of the games should be played at provincial venues, to my mind, as well. And bring
that's an
that
important point. That's an important point, Jim, because, you know, these games, you know, when it starts whittling down, when you start getting into the last 8, you know, they're going to be huge, huge games. You bring them to provincial, you bring them to the simple stadiums, you bring them to the McHale Parks. You know, you have this Tailteann Cup game on beforehand with 2 good teams as well going toe to toe. It bodes very well for excitement. It bodes very well for a buzz around the game. It bodes very well for crowds, more crowds at games. And look, obviously this year has been, you know, I think there'll be more crowds at games anyway next year, but I really do think this would rejuvenate fans from all over Ireland to get behind their team and go with a realistic chance of winning and a realistic chance of moving on and trying to win something. And the fact that you have your final on the same time as your All-Ireland final, you're guaranteeing them 70 or 80,000 at the end of their game. You're guaranteeing the players getting massive recognition, lifting that cup.
There's no safety net either, Kieran. There's no safety net, and that's the bottom line, and that's why people have been calling for that this season. The fact that there isn't a safety net, and when that game's coming down the track and there's 20 minutes left to go, it's a different animal. So it is, and for me, crucially, there's a sense of there's a sense of fairness to the All Ireland. It's just a sense of fairness. There's a sense of fairness, you know, that everybody's doing their best for their county during the league. Everybody's going out to wholeheartedly win the provincial championship, and then they're approaching the playoffs, whichever tier they're in the same manner as every other team in the country. It's a fresh start, like, and it's championship football again. And so I think there's just a real sense of fairness, and good work is appreciated and good work is rewarded. And so all those things, when you pull them together, just leaves everybody part of the conversation, as I said earlier.
Yeah, look, thanks for that, Jim. Look, very interesting. And I think, you know, if I was from, as you rightly say, a supposed Tier 2 team, I think I'd be excited on the back of it. So thanks for sharing that insight. Thanks for coming on OTB AM. Look forward to seeing you on Sky Sports Mix live in person. 4:30, I think Kevin and we're on air for Kevin versus Dublin. And then obviously Sunday, looking forward to the Tip and Mayo game. So look forward to seeing you the weekend. Thanks for coming on and be safe.
Thank you, Kieran.
No bother, Jim.
Yeah, Jim McGuinness in conversation with Kieran there. A reminder that you can watch both lads on analysis across the weekend on Sky Sports Mix as they bring you both All-Ireland football semi-finals live. Sky Sports Mix is available in approximately 900,000 homes in Ireland on Sky Channel 416 and on Virgin Channel 409.